How's your day going?
It's okay. Could be better. A bit of sleep deprivation. I've got a 4-year-old. It can be the kids can be tough, but pretty good overall, I would say.
Sweet. I appreciate that. That's good. Now we've set the vibe for it. Let's go to the next very important question. Question 2. Why Path of Exile 2? Why not just make a big expansion of Path of Exile 1? What actually required you guys to say, we need a whole new game instead of just making an expansion?
So, Path of Exile 2 really is the most absurd feature creep story that ever existed in the world, honestly. So the very first thing that happened was, okay, what is currently the worst thing about Path of Exile? And the thing that we said that we weren't liking was actually melee combat.
I think question 7 is, why do you hate melee? So we'll get to that eventually.
We were very unhappy. It's like, well, why is the melee combat bad? Well, the reason it's bad is because it's very hard for us to make new melee skills. Well, why is it hard for us to make new melee skills? Well, the reason for that is because the rigs for the characters were literally the first thing that got made back at the very beginning in 2007, very early 2007. And so they are the oldest assets in the game. And not only that, but they were made by someone who wasn't exactly a world-class rigger at the time. You know what I mean? Like, we were a studio with like a few people in New Zealand. It's not like we had access to like all of these, things. So that sort of core thing, the character rig, was something that was made at the earliest point with the least experience. And the problem with character rigs is not only did we have a character rig that was made that way, but we also had a different one for every character class, which means that every animation you make, you have to make 7 times.
What was the benefit of having a different rig for every class? Did the differences facilitate that?
There wasn't one. We just didn't think about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's that simple. It's that simple.
So hang on. I know there's that joke about feature bloat going into Path of Exile 1 and the fact there's just too much stuff and feature creep. Right. Are you saying from the very first day you had different rigs for different classes with no real reason to have that?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's the foundation. The game is built on too much stuff. This is beautiful. Yep. Sorry, carry on. Why do we need a whole new game instead of an expansion?
Yeah. So then, we're like the problem with this as well is that so all of your armors in the game are rigged to those character rigs, right? So not only if you want to change this, not only do you have to redo all the armors in the game and all the character animations as well, but like it's just a huge task. So the first thing we set out to do was, okay, even though this is a huge task, even though it's going to take us a really long time, we're going to remake these character rigs. And then when we did that and we started seeing the animation that we could do on the new rigs, we're like, okay, well, this looks a lot better, but one of the other issues that we've got is that the beginning of the game also just looks really old. We really should do some refreshing of the art. So then Eric set out, he's like, we're gonna do some refreshes of this art and try to make the beginning of the game look better again. And it only took a little bit of time doing that before we're like, okay, well, if we're making new areas, we might as well not bother just remaking the previous areas. What we really should do is make some new areas, because then, that will be new content and it takes a seminar of effort anyway. So we might as well just do that. So then we're like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make an alternative Act 1 that you can play instead of Act 1 in the game. So, or even what we'll do is we thought maybe we'll replace Act 1 with another version of it, like that you start somewhere else and we've got like, and effectively these, and it worked like this. So we're sort of doing that. And then eventually we got to the point where we realized that we really wanted to make a whole new campaign, because, the old campaign really was starting to show its age. Like, we could do a lot better now, all this sort of stuff. So we just sort of went along this way. And that point where we're like, we're going to make a new campaign, that was where we ended up when we announced PoE 2 initially, where it was going to be the same game but with 2 campaigns.
So your solution to the game containing too much stuff was to make more stuff for the game.
Absolutely.
Guys, we made way too much stuff when we started this. We've made it difficult for ourselves. So what we're going to do is make far more stuff, and then it'll be, it'll be better. We'll dig ourselves out of this hole by digging more hole. And eventually you realized we've just got a second game on our hands now.
Exactly. It literally was the point where we're like, we're remaking everything. The actual moment of we have to change from making an expansion to PoE 1 to making it as PoE 2 is just separate, was just the point where we realized that things were changing so much that we couldn't even really viably patch it into Path of Exile 1 without it causing significant problems in the community. Just like even just that migration would have been absolutely insane. And so they're like, oh, okay, so effectively, Path of Exile 2 is a like weird cancerous growth from PoE 1 that kind of metastasized into its own entity, in a way, which doesn't sound like the most amazing birth of a game project ever, but surprisingly, that is kind of how it
You're all looking
works.
at this and going, we can fix this. We can design more stuff and fix this and it'll be great. That is, by the way, that is going to be the quote that the chat take and run with. And that's why Jonathan's in charge of this, because he will make memorable quotes for this game. For anyone who's just joining us in the stream, we've now got 2,500 people hanging out with us. Jonathan's the game developer, game designer, the kind of lead of Path of Exile 2, and I'm a guy that likes games, so I'm asking him lots of questions. However, I am aware... Jonathan, how many of these interviews have you done so far? You spoke to Preach, you've spoken to Zizaran...
Yeah, I don't know, probably about 5. I don't know. I'm not actually keeping that too hard of a count on it.
You just turn on, they give you a
5.
microphone, you just speak to whoever's there, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much.
Excellent.
I mean,
so they've given you a couple of interviews so far, lots of stuff. Spoke to Darth Microtransactions. Yeah. I've watched lots of these. There was a try, that was really good. It was these people have asked you so many in-depth questions, and we need to kind of vary away from the super in-depth, because not everyone is a super in-depth hardcore and franchise player. Some people are just casuals. Some people care about you as a person. So let's go on. So the answer to Path of Exile, why is a Path of Exile 2 required, is the scope of what you did was just so massive that you wouldn't have been able to integrate it back into Path of Exile 1 even if you wanted to.
Sure.